All right, let's jump right in. Artificial intelligence. It's not some sci-fi dream anymore, is it? It's here, it's now, and it's already making these huge decisions for us about our money, our careers, even our health. So that forces us to ask this one really important question.
AI promises us a lot, right? Total efficiency, pure objectivity, deciding who gets a loan or who gets an interview without any human baggage. But what happens when it gets it wrong? I mean, are these decisions actually the right ones? And can we really, truly trust the judgment of a machine?
And that, right there, brings us to our first big topic, the fairness question. See, the worry here is that AI isn't building some new, super objective world. Instead, it might just be learning our worst habits. It's like a high-tech mirror, reflecting back and maybe even amplifying our oldest and ugliest prejudices.
Okay, so this phenomenon has a name, algorithmic bias. And let's be clear, this isn't about some evil robot plotting against us. Not at all. It's about systematic errors. And where do those errors come from? Well, usually it's the data we feed these systems. Think about it. If you train an AI on data from a world that's, well, full of historical bias and inequality, what do you think it's going to learn? It's going to learn to be biased and unequal too. And look, this is not just some academic theory. This has real, painful consequences. Let's take a look. Amazon. They built a recruiting AI that actually learned to penalize resumes from women. Why? Because it was trained on their past male-dominated hiring data. Or how about the Compass algorithm used in actual U.S. courtrooms? It was twice as likely to falsely flag black defendants as being high risk for reoffending compared to white defendants. And then there's a huge healthcare algorithm that was systematically giving white patients priority for extra care. In every single one of these cases, the AI wasn't being malicious, it was just being a really good student of a very biased world.
So the obvious question is, why can't we just, go in and fix the code? Well, it's not that simple. Amazon tried exactly that. They went in and manually removed all the gender-specific words. But the AI was too smart for that. It had already figured out other, much more subtle clues in the resumes to keep its bias going. In the end, they had to scrap the whole thing. It just goes to show you, the problem isn't just a technical glitch. It's systemic. It's baked right into the very data we're using. Data that reflects our society, warts and all.
So that whole fairness thing is a huge can of worms. But it leads us to another, equally tricky question, the trust question. Let's say, just for a moment, we could build a perfectly fair AI. Could we actually rely on its decisions if we have absolutely no idea how it made them?
And this, my friends, is what's known as the black box problem. It's a huge deal in AI. Here's why. Many of the most powerful AI models, especially the deep learning networks we hear so much about, are just unbelievably complex. We're talking billions of calculations and connections, so complex, in fact, that even the people who design them can't fully trace the logic. You put data in, a decision comes out, but the why behind that decision, it's locked away inside that black box.
When you can't see inside the box, you can run into this really weird kind of danger. It's called the clever Hans effect. It's a great story. It's named after this horse, Hans, who everyone thought could do math. But it turned out he wasn't doing math at all. He was just cleverly reading his trainer's subtle, unconscious body language. Well, an AI did the exact same thing. A model was built to spot COVID-19 in lung x-rays, and it looked amazingly accurate. But when researchers dug in, they found it wasn't looking at the lungs. Nope, it was looking at the text font on the x-ray, because it learned that certain hospitals, which used a specific font, had sicker patients. It was getting the right answer for the absolute wrong reason.
So when a black box system like that fails, who's on the hook? Who do you blame? The people who provided the data? The developers who coded the model? The user who trusted the output? This is what experts call the problem of many hands. So many people are involved in building and using an AI that responsibility gets spread so thin, it basically disappears.
And this creates what are called responsibility gaps. There are actually 4 of them. First, there's the culpability gap, like who is legally to blame? Then you've got the moral accountability gap. How can you take moral responsibility for a decision you literally don't understand? Third is the public accountability gap. If the government uses a black box AI, how can we, the public, possibly scrutinize it? And finally, there's the active responsibility gap, which is when designers just fail to think about these risks from the start. It all adds up to this huge void right where accountability is supposed to be.
Okay, So we've talked about bias in black boxes, and it can all feel a little abstract. But these problems have real, tangible costs. This is about the human cost. It's about how AI hits us where we live, our privacy, and our jobs.
Let's start with privacy. And there's this thing called shadow AI. That's when employees use AI tools that their company hasn't approved, and they start feeding sensitive company data into them. Now you might think, what's the harm? Well, according to IBM, when that shadow AI use leads to a data breach, it adds, get this, an average of $670,000 to the cost of that breach. That's a huge number. And here's the kicker. Here's why that cost is so high. That same report found that in companies that were breached because of AI, a jaw-dropping 97% of them had no proper access controls for that AI. 97%! That's not a small mistake. That is a massive failure of governance. It's basically leaving the digital front door wide open.
And then, of course, there's the impact on jobs.
AI is getting incredibly good at automating what we call cognitive tasks, thinking work. So as you can see here, jobs that rely heavily on language, like writers, translators, and customer support reps, they're at a much higher risk. For now, at least, the jobs that seem safer are the ones that need a human touch, either physically, like construction laborers, or emotionally, like nurses and therapists. AI can't really do that yet.
Okay, so the problems are pretty clear, right? We've got bias, we've got opacity, we've got real human costs. But here's the good news. The world is finally starting to wake up and respond. We are in the very early days of building the guardrails that we need to steer this technology in a safe direction. And this governance is kind of popping up all over the place, across a whole spectrum. At first, it was just individual companies, Google, Microsoft, publishing their own voluntary AI principles. Then it got a bit bigger, with international groups like the OECD creating standards that dozens of countries could agree on, sort of a shared blueprint. And now, we're finally getting to the last and most important stage, actual, binding, enforceable laws.
And the biggest example of that, by far, is the EU's landmark AI Act. It's really clever. It uses this risk pyramid, so at the very top you have unacceptable risk, things like government social scoring systems, totally banned, outright. Then you have high-risk systems, think AI for hiring or for deciding if you get a loan. Those are allowed, but with super strict rules about data quality, human oversight, and accuracy. Below that, limited risk things, like a chatbot. The main rule there is just transparency. It has to tell you you're talking to an AI. And then at the bottom, you have minimal risk. This is most AI, like your email spam filter. And that stuff is basically left alone.
So, after all of that, where do we stand? What's our role in this future? Well, it's pretty simple. The whole point of AI ethics was never to slam the brakes on technology and stop progress. No, it's about grabbing the steering wheel.
And that really is the core takeaway here. The goal isn't to stop AI. It's to steer it, to guide it, toward a future that actually benefits all of us. A future that's fair, that's equitable, and one that aligns with our deepest, most enduring human values. Because in the end, that's what AI really is. It's a mirror. A really powerful one. It reflects everything we feed it, our priorities, our biases, our values. It just shows it right back to us. And so the really important question isn't just, what can this technology do? The real question is, when we hold up that mirror, what do we want it to show us about ourselves?